In this screencast, we're going to take a look at how to do some basic animation using keyframes in Blender. The first thing we're going to want to do is change our view of our model from the model view to the animation view. This will come up and it changes which panes are showing on our window right now. The first thing we see over here on the left is called the outliner. This is the list of all the objects in our model. You see I have a lot of metaballs that I have turned off. I can actually click on an object to select it. For example, I just selected the camera by clicking on it in here. Normally, if you were using a wider view, you'd actually see the names of all these objects, but I'm doing this little window, so it's all very small there. So the outliner, the button panel, which we're familiar with, a 3D view, which we're also familiar with. You'll notice drop down to a wireframe view of our model so we can move it around more easily with less wear and tear on the computer. Something called the IPO view, which is a more advanced animation technique that we're not going to worry about right now. In fact, we're just going to switch this to a second 3D view right here. And I'm going to set the second view to be a top view, which is sort of like a map view of this. We'll zoom in on the teddy bear a little bit there so we can see what's going on. And then if you look down here, you see there's a timeline right here. By default, our timeline starts at frame 1 and goes to frame 250. This takes about 10 seconds. Figure about 24 frames per second. What we're going to do here is we're going to do a quick little animation of our camera spinning around our teddy bear. This is going to be sort of a rough version, and there's going to be a glitch in it that I'll explain at the end how to fix. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to select our camera. With the camera selected, we get it lined up exactly as we want it to be at the first frame. Note that that's where we are in our timeline right here is frame 1. Frame 1, we see the green line, we see the number. And at this point, with the camera exactly where I want it, I'm going to type I on the keyboard, and I'm going to insert a location rotation keyframe. This saves this camera position at frame 1. And we note that this is now a yellow and green line there at frame 1. I'm going to move to the last keyframe here. I'm going to collapse my menu so we can see it. I'm just going to use this button right here that pops me all the way to the end. I'm going to insert the same keyframe at the end, so that now I've got matching keyframes at the beginning and end, so that this will end just as it began, so I can loop this video. The next thing I'm going to do is in the middle of the video, so right about keyframe 125, which I could either type into this box right here, or as you saw, I just clicked right in the middle and got lucky and hit exactly the middle. I now need to move my camera to where I'd like it to be. And because what I'd like to do is have my camera doing a big swooping maneuver around this teddy bear, I'm going to move the camera to behind the bear. Now, you'll note, first off, the camera's pointed in the wrong direction. So I'm going to rotate my camera around so that it's pointed back at the bear. And with the camera in this new position at frame 125, I'm going to insert yet another keyframe. Right now, if I were to run this animation, I'm going to click this button here to skip to the beginning of my movie. We can see what the camera sees over here on the left. If I play this right now, the computer will simply approximate the steps from one keyframe. So I was looking at it, then I was looking at the back of it, and then I zoom back to the beginning again. And it'll just keep looping this. So it'll interpolate my animation. I would like, here at frame 62-ish, I would like my camera, rather than being right over the bear, I would like my camera to be off to the side of the bear. And I'm going to rotate a little bit here so it's aimed a little bit more at the side of the bear. So now I'm going to insert another lock rod here. We see we've got another yellow line on the keyframe. And this will actually force the camera to pan around the side of the bear rather than flipping over it. Now, to complete this maneuver, I need to put a matching keyframe here around right about there, say. I can probably do better than that, right? At this point, I'd like to complete my swoop maneuver here. So I need to move the camera again. And we will grab the translate tool here to drag the camera over to the side. Again, the camera's pointing the wrong way, so I'm going to spin it around so that it's aimed at the bear. Oh, sorry, grabbed the wrong thing there. There we go. It's aimed roughly at the bear. I'm going to insert one last location rotation keyframe right here. So I now have 4 keyframes: the beginning, 2, 3 in the middle, and the end. So what I expect my camera to do is to make one big swooping motion all the way around this. Watch through the camera and from above as the camera does this to see if that is actually what happens. So far so good, right? We continue around the back, it's all good. We continue to the side, it's all good. And now for some reason it twists around backwards to get to the end. It turns out that there's a reasonable explanation for this. I'm going to type N on my keyboard to bring up the transform properties. This is showing me at any given point in time as I move along the timeline just by dragging the cursor, it shows me the rotation of the camera around the z-axis. We can see this number up here spinning as I change where we are on the timeline. When we start at the bottom, at keyframe 1, rotation is 0. I'm going to skip ahead to the next keyframe, clicking this button. The rotation is -93, so I've about a quarter of the way around a circle. Skip to the next keyframe, and it's -180, so -90, -180. Skip to the next one, it's -260, which should have been about -270. We won't worry about that, but we're continuing around the circle in the same direction. And we end at 0. So to get this from -270 to 0, the camera actually has to spin backwards back up to 0. What we want in this last keyframe is actually for the camera to be pointing in the same direction, but to be counting in the same direction as all the other keyframes. So I'm going to switch this to -360. We see no change in the camera, but when we play this back, after remembering to insert a keyframe here, and that is vital. If we don't insert a keyframe here, we will not save this position. So I'm inserting another lock rock keyframe. I'm rewriting this to be a -360. So when we play this back, what we'll see is the camera will pan smoothly around the teddy bear without doing that extra pirouette in the bottom right quadrant the way it did before. Ending up exactly where we ended. So I could now render this whole thing and have a loop that I could play again and again.